Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Suffice it to say, we started talking about the Central Park 911 liar yesterday. We also started talking about El Señor George Floyd and go on and on and on. Again, it was not enough to do this one time. It was not enough to do this one time. This is serious. This is existential. Yes, that word, existential. Central Park 911. Title of the show today. Central Park 911 liar says her life destroyed, but George Floyd is dead. Complicity matters. Complicity matters, folk. Dexter Evans, Dark Authority. How you doing, Dexter Evans? Welcome aboard. Amy Cooper, the Central Park liar that could have cost a black man his life, says her life is destroyed. People like her, however, are complicit in the cycle that kills. And of course, we'll talk about economic systems, and we'll talk about the COVID-19 update. And we're going to give a piece from Cuomo, El Señor Cuomo from New York. Very, very important. The Central Park liar is no aberration. She is not an aberration, folks. Her behavior and the behavior of many like her are complicit in the murder of many, specifically black men. That section of society's pre and post behavior tells the murderers, the police officers that kill, the citizens that want to tell you that it is their right to have a citizen's arrest to kill you. They normalize those behaviors. They say it's okay. How? I mean, most of these officers don't go to jail. Most of these officers are okay. Most of these officers, the grand jury comes in, do their thing, and they're off. Who is complicit in what's happening? Until we accept responsibilities, we're going to have Dr. Eddie Glaude with some statements that he's made as well. Prescient. That's important. But before we get started, in our first segment we feature soon-to-be Senator of Georgia, Tamara Shealy. She will discuss the results of Georgia's opening prematurely and unseen pain many are going through. Is all this opening worth it? What is the value of life? Will we continue to appease the wealthy and give them our service, risking our lives and the lives of our families? Or are we going to take the pain and force the government, we the people, to act? Well, you know what? I think she's for the opening, but she's also trying to go to Washington. Is she going to do what's right in Washington? Is she going to make sure that we change the system to make sure it really works for us all? Actually, I think she will. Without further ado, La Señora Tamara Shealy, once again with Politics Done Right. Tamara, how art thou doing, my dear friend? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. There you go.
Awesome,
how are you doing?
Awesome. I'm wonderful. How are you, Politics Done Right family?
Oh, we are doing fine. Family Maywood, Lawrence Sims, Bruce Pillar, Dexter Evans. They're already here with us in the chat, plus all the thousands that are going to be here and the otherwise. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Egberto. Just watching America from right here in Georgia. It's pretty hard to hear you talk about Amy Cooper. It's very hard to hear you talk about George Floyd. It's hard because this is Black people. This is our reality. it's hard.
Well, you have two sons. I have a friend on Facebook today, Tamara, that says, "I have a son. I have a son, and I wonder. I am lost. I am a black man, and I tell you how I feel. When I feel what's the recourse? It's not only what's the recourse. It's the cops doing it, it's the vigilantes doing it. But I'll get there later. That's not really what I am supposed to be talking about with you today, is it?
Well, you know what? I think we can't not talk about it together, Egberto. I do have two sons, and every time they leave the house, I promise you, I'm always a bit worried. I pray over my children a lot because I know how easy it is to you know, be one of these people that have, we've lost George Floyd and, Philando Castile and, Eric Garner and, Trayvon Martin.
And it always seems to be, well, if they had just done this. If Philando Castile had just, well, he asked for his license and he told them up front, I have I have a license to carry and I do have a gun in the car. May I get my license? Yes, you can. I go to get my license and maybe my move was somehow scared. My hue made that cop scared. So he blew my head off. This guy is lying down handcuffed on the ground. Handcuffed on the ground. 9 minutes that knee was on the neck. 9 minutes. 9 minutes. The people are passing by saying, you're killing the man. You're killing him. And no one did anything.
And the look on the officer's face. I could not watch that video. I have learned how much my spirit can handle. I could not watch it, but I did see the smirk and him. I saw a little bit where he put his hands, had his hands look like in his pocket.
It was in his pocket.
Proud. Like he was proud to be. This is a catch. Like this was a prize.
It was a hunt. It was a hunt. Yes. And the scariest part about it is it happened in broad daylight with a surrounding audience. And that was there to say, I have the power to do this. Mm-hmm. And you know what? America is complicit because guess what? He did have the power to do it. You look at all the killings that have occurred, it points out the fact that yes, he did have the power to do it. Maywood, welcome aboard. Dwayne Rose, welcome aboard. Rose Williams, welcome aboard. So anyhow, I have a full schedule on this issue with videos and all of that I want to do. So let's go ahead and talk about Georgia. First of all, Georgia has opened. We've had a lot of messing around with the numbers. Talk to me.
Yeah, we did. But Egberto, I do believe, the numbers now, let me give you what they are. We've tested a total of 518,000. We've had 44,000 confirmed, 1,700 ICU admissions, a little over 7,000 hospitalizations, and 1,900 plus deaths. So the numbers are quote unquote right now. Hopefully they're not messing around with these numbers. But if you look at it, Georgia has tested a 500,000 people and 44,000 have been confirmed cases. So 1 in 10 more like. So Egberto, we had to go back to work in this state, and we had to go back to work. Now moving forward, we need to make sure there's policies in place to address what we see now, the disparities that we see now, but this state had to go back to work.
I know we are going to continue to disagree on that, but that's not the important thing, because what's important is that people are working, and it's not only Georgia. Let me tell you, Texas is a hot spot in Houston. It's a hot spot in Dallas. We are not doing it right. And I think we are probably doing it worse than Georgia is doing it right now. So I'm not, I'm just one person. I'm just one agent disagreeing. But that said, my concern was something that happened, I think, in Missouri, where the people in your business, the people that you represent, they weren't as diligent. Maybe they should have read your book because evidently, no, I'm serious. They infected approximately 104 or potentially infected about 140 people.
Yeah, I saw it, and the one thing is that the stylist did have on. They said she had on protective equipment, so she did have on a mask. She should not have gone to work if she was not feeling well. But
Right.
what those circumstances were, Egberto, and maybe she could not afford to stay home. We don't know what those circumstances were, but she, it is very a very sad situation that she would she has possibly infected
But
hundreds.
Tamara, I'm with you. I am really with you. When I come and I say things like I this you thought you are looking from the financial perspective of the people that you represent. I get it. I genuinely get that. But I have to be for the policy going forward that says if in that situation those folks should not have had to put themselves at risk just to survive. You get what I know you get what I'm
Absolutely,
saying.
absolutely. This industry didn't get unemployment. A lot of people in this industry did not get unemployment, did not get stimulus, weren't getting grants and loans. So, going back to work was no option. It was
Right.
no option for so many. But the fact that the stylist was wearing protective equipment, hopeful that, many people, she did not infect many people.
Yeah, well, I hope not because we are following the same thing. And Lee Grant wants to say that that you are correct and I am wrong. He says that people have to go to work. So you have your followers but guess what? Lee Grant is a very conservative man. I have my conservative followers and my progressive followers. These are great people. We have a great melting pot here at Politics Done Right. I love them all. I love them
Well,
all.
one thing about politics, Egberto, progressives aren't always right and conservatives aren't always
I
wrong. Like,
agree. Absolutely.
we don't all, I think there's some gray area in the middle that we have to figure out how to, navigate together. But I don't think either side gets it right all the
All of the
time.
times. Absolutely. So now, Tamara, let's change subject a bit. Tell me a little bit about the. Apparently, you guys are getting popular with Biden. Biden may want to have some talks with all you folks. Now, I'm kind of like, wow, Georgia,
Oh,
Georgia is
Georgia.
and not only is Biden looking at Georgia, but Biden may be looking at some black women. My gosh, you mean black women in the Democratic Party may finally get some sort of a due? Is that what I heard?
America has to get this right. I mean, we have to get it right. And you know what, Georgia, we're some great peaches here in Georgia.
Okay, but tell me about Georgia and those three women.
Oh, two women. It's
On two
state.
women, two women. Well, you see, I'm
Mhm,
counting you as a senator that's going to be
Oh, I
representing
appreciate it.
that. Remember, you have a good chance of making it into the primary, and if you make it in the primary, it's a 50-50 deal, baby.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really excited. But yeah, so they're looking at Stacey Abrams. Biden is looking at Keisha Lance Bottoms, who is the mayor of Atlanta. So yeah, they've got their eye on Georgia. I think that it's time for Black women to have a place in leadership inside of this Democratic Party, carrying the party on our backs, literally. Come
Yeah.
on, guys. It is time for the Democratic Party to have representation that looks like where their strength is.
Well, I'm going to tell you, and I think I said this when Biden was chosen. I think there's a whole lot of machinations going on right now, but I think there's little hope that he's going to pick Stacey or Bottoms. I just have a feeling that they're playing some games right now, and I think his favorite is this young lady from Minnesota, Klobuchar. I think that's where his heart is, but I think he may have to break and then pick Elizabeth Warren. But who am I?
You think he would? I wasn't thinking Elizabeth Warren, and honestly, I do agree with you that I think he really does have his eye on Amy. I think
Yes.
that she is really his probably going to be his pick.
Well, however, if he picks Amy Klobuchar, It's going to be hard for him to lose the race in November, in my humble opinion. I just think that Trump, people are going to realize how bad Trump is that he's likely to, I mean, it's fatal for him, in my opinion, for now. I could be wrong, but I
I
think
just hate that the Democratic Party is missing the opportunity to really kind of change how America sees people, people of color, black people, brown people. I think that the Democratic Party, I want them to be more progressive, but I understand that this is politics, and
yeah.
it
Well,
may not look like what I think it should look
I
like.
don't think though. Look, I'm gonna. I'll be blunt. We have to go take it. We have to go win it, and by that I mean progressives. If we want a progressive party, and this is what I tell progressives, we can't just get pissed off when we don't win. The truth of the matter is, we should have gone into South Carolina with a different modal to find a way, if we wanted a progressive candidate to win, to make that progressive candidate win and be able to sell it over to, in the case of South Carolina, the black people. If we didn't want Biden, we should have done our job. The truth of the matter is Biden was working it, and yeah, Bernie and all these guys were working it, but they didn't make a progressive modal existential. They didn't go out there and say, look, he is not going to do XYZ, which is what that community needs. Ask him. He'll tell you straight up, I'm not going to give you Medicare for all. I'm not going to give you college tuition. I'm not going to give you those things because those are freebies. That's what he
And,
said.
and there was no black agenda, and there was no talk of
There
reparations.
was
There was no
nothing.
talk of the things that black people want to talk about. They're not speaking to us.
Exactly. But when you have the you know what, as in Clyburn, go out and say, hey, I am going to be voting for. And it was evident that South Carolina, I mean, I get in trouble for saying this, is a patriarchal state. You know, it's sort of the Pied Piper there, and he leads and they follow. It's not like, let's say, a New York or this place where you have people think so much differently. People are looking for leaders in those places. I want more distributive leadership than centralized leadership. But anyhow, we're coming up on time, Tamara. So give me a closer. First of all, I know that you're driving around the state of Georgia. Remember what we talk about, going to them little towns, man. But anyhow, what's up?
Yeah, Egberto, I haven't announced that yet, but thank you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
They know now, Egberto. I
Okay.
have to make sure I tell you last.
No, you have to tell you when you tell me things. You have to tell me this is not to be out.
I
Anyway,
love you. It's okay.
give me a
Yeah,
closer.
it's definitely coming out. Yeah. So I am Tamara Johnson Shealy, candidate for the United States Senate. Yes, Egberto. I will be traveling around the state of Georgia for the next 5 months. I mean, literally going into the most rural areas, having conversations with rural Georgia. You know, I'm really more southern than people know, so I know how to, go down and really make those connections. So I'm looking forward to getting back on the campaign trail as safely as I can. I'll be doing some social distancing as I campaign, but Egberto, I'm going into the deep south.
And you know what? I am glad. And you know what? I am. I wish you had told me that you didn't announce it yet, because I thought it
It's
was.
okay.
But let me tell you, that is great because it's going to be on podcasts everywhere. Hey, she's coming your way, and you know what? If you want to reach her, you reach her and tell her to come into town, because we need somebody that's going to go out there, Tamara, and understand what's going on with the people. The business that you've been in, you understand how. I mean, the woman that you guys are going to replace now, she doesn't get it. She doesn't get it.
No,
She gets the
no.
stocks, but that she doesn't get it. We need people like you out there in the Senate. So I wish you all the luck, and thank you so kindly for being here on Politics Done Right. Why don't you tell folks how they can reach you while you're not on the road?
You can always reach me at tamara4georgia.com. We do reach back quickly.
And tell us a little bit about your show.
Oh, every Saturday, and Egberto joins us to give us a national update. David Slavin and we talk all things Georgia, Georgia politics, and all things Georgia every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern on all social media. So I'm out there.
Well, look, Tamara, thank you very much for being on Politics Done Right. Every other Wednesday, she's here. And whenever she goes on the you know what, we'll also hear from her. Thank you so kindly for being here, Tamara.
Thank you, Egberto.
Have a great one.
Me
Folks,
too.
that was Tamara Shealy running for the Senate, Georgia Senate, and not the state Senate, the actual Senate from the state proper. Anyhow, we have a great show for you. And I want to centralize today. I want to centralize today on the issue with George Floyd. But not only that, it's deeper than that. I want to start, however, with what occurred in Central Park. Because while these were thousands of miles away, maybe several hundred miles away, there's a centrality there that unless we understand, if we don't understand that, we don't understand what's really going on, why these things occur over and over again. You know, a friend of the show, Simone, sent me an email, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to talk to Simone about being a producer because she has, I look at the articles and I go through my feed and I get all these articles to look at to see where the pulse is, right? But she sent me one from the Mercury News, and the title of it was, "After calling cops on Blackbird Watcher, Amy Cooper says, my entire life is being destroyed. Her employer, Franklin Templetown, announces she has lost her job." And the first thing you can do there is feel some sorrow, right? Here is a woman who's made a mistake, a bad mistake. And as she did it, Templeton just said, "Oh, bye-bye, baby. You represent, and if we hold on to you, you know what it means? It means that Templeton now is associated with you, who made the world realize that you were a racist." And I don't say that racist in an accusative manner. I'm saying that many people have racist inclinations. All people. And don't follow the thing that only white people can be racist. Everybody can be racist. But racism affects people differently. Black racists generally don't get a white person killed by the state. But white racism can get black folks killed by the state. These are important concepts for us to understand. So you don't have to sit down there and, there's this tenet, oh, these particular people of color can't be racist. No, that's BS. Everybody can be racist. We have good people and bad people in every single race. And by the way, race is silly. I've always talked about that. Right? Race is a silly thing. But since we're in America, since we're in the Western world, we have to talk within that context. Now, so the title of the article is, "After calling the cops on the Blackbird Watcher, Amy says her life is destroyed." And the first thing to think is, my God, she went to the park with a dog, and because of her actions for 5 minutes, she lost her several $100,000 job. Okay? What a bad thing that has occurred to her. But then you sit back and you think about what within her made her do that, right? This guy told her she needed to do something, put a leash on a dog. And Candace Owens got on my nerves yesterday because Candace wanted to do a plausibility study as far as if this issue was really a black and white issue. And I'm not talking about race. I'm talking about, well, there were some different levels of culpability here. The different levels of culpability because somehow Christian Cooper, it's funny, they both have the same last name. Christian Cooper was a bit harsh with her, and he told her, "Since you're going to do what you like and I don't like it, I may do something you don't like." And that got her scared. What he meant, of course, is that people don't like you feeding their dogs. And since this was going to be a dog off of a leash, he was going to feed the dog. And then I bet she's going to put the leash on because she don't want the dog eating the food that he's given her. And that is what pisses her off. This black guy pissed her off. Her supremacy dictated that, how dare you tell me what to do? How dare you confront me? But I do have recourse, and my recourse is what I see on TV all the time. I can get somebody to come here and beat the crap out of you for challenging me. I am saying, I'm not saying she went through those same machinations. I am saying that is what is known to happen on TV. I call. And then if they don't respond enough, you see in her video, he is threatening me. And when they don't give her the response sufficiently accurate, she then says, and she starts the crying methodology. Oh, he's threatening me. He's threatening me. And then the crying starts. Damsel in distress. This woman could have gotten that man killed. You doubt it? This woman could have gotten this man killed. So then she lost her several $100,000 job. Do I feel sorry for that? Yeah. Yeah. I would have liked her to keep her several $100,000 jobs and started donating into places where people learn what this behavior is all about. I don't care what is in your heart, what is in your mind. I care what gets executed. Yesterday, I think I was telling you guys about police officers that people like to say most of them are good. And I said, no, most of them are bad. To be a police officer, right, a lot of these guys have that man syndrome, that macho man syndrome that says, I want to have command over you. And you can't have command over everybody, but in America, you can have command over black bodies because it has been proven that society has been complicit in allowing these guys to do as they please with black and brown bodies. My white brothers and sisters, good ones, you have to be a part of the game. You have to be a part of this solution. You have to make sure that when you get on those grand juries, when the execution of these, and by the way, when I talk about police officers, right? Once you become a police officer, the trait is the same among all these officers. And they know who they can manhandle and who they can't. Because I have seen black officers treat black men like crap. And these same black officers, when they're talking to white men or white women or whatever, it's a completely different tonality. The subjugation of black lives is an institutional thing. So what I'm trying to say is the mentality here is something that we have to acknowledge implicitly. Implicitly. And until we get there, until we understand that, nothing is really going to change. What I want to do, I want you to hear what Eddie Glaude had to say. Eddie Glaude is important. But beforehand, since Daniel Ledo is saying a few things online, I want to address Daniel Ledo. Daniel Ledo says, if someone like Egberto is obsessed with race and views even the simplest interaction as motivated by race, doesn't that make him a racist? And my good friend, my other conservative, Lee Grant, says yes. And Daniel responds, she could have gotten him killed. Absurd statement. No, it's not absurd. It happens all the time. It happens all the times. But anyhow, you can choose not to accept what's in front of your face. That is fine. But let me go ahead and play Eddie Glaude, and then we'll continue with the conversation because this is important, what Eddie has to say. So here we go.
Why isn't the outrage and the response over the revelation that this is how that city's police officers conduct themselves? And what I asked this question yesterday, this is what they do in the light of day. I mean, what questions do you have about what other practices are going on that maybe weren't caught on camera, that maybe didn't happen in the light of day?
You know, Nicole, I think it's pretty much common knowledge in the United States that we have multiple Americas, and that is evidenced in the way in which those Americas are policed. People need, the video exposes a kind of willful ignorance, right? It provides light on the shadow, against the idea of innocence of the country. But I think there's an intimate knowledge around the country that there are two Americas, that police don't value the lives of black folk. I mean, when you look at the face of that officer, he doesn't seem to assume that he has his knee on the neck of a human being. he's with his hand in his pocket. He doesn't hear him call out for his mother. He doesn't hear him crying. And so this is the America we live in, and we just need to confront it honestly, Nicole.
And we just need to confront it honestly. Now, folks, like some of my friends here in the room, I don't, it is, these are not bad people, but they're willfully ignorant. I live it. So there's nothing that Daniel Ledo or Lee Grant can tell me that I haven't lived. So I mean, I told folks yesterday in the show when I spoke is that I make sure personally, I'm going to get personal now. I make sure as a black man living in America, nobody knows that. Nobody knows I'm an engineer. Nobody knows any of these things. Nobody, when I am stopped by a cop, I am just another black body. And one has to realize that. Conservative black folk need to realize. Candace Owens, an apologist for racists is what I call her many times. Have to learn this. I would love to take Candace Owen in certain parts of Texas or certain parts of New York without them knowing it is conservative Candace Owen, so that she will understand what we're talking about here. But one of the things Eddie Glaude said there that was so prescient. If you take a look at the video, if you take the time to look at the video, and you see that police officer's knees on that man's neck, a man that is immobile, a man that says he cannot breathe, a man that says that that eventually stops moving, and they're telling this cop, sir, you are killing this guy. You are killing this guy. And he has a smirk on his face and his hands in his pocket. Look at what I can do that you can do nothing about. And America is around, and we have apologists that try to make this into something that somehow is not a racist thing. How comes it is that the people that are always in this position, the majority of the times, look a particular way? How comes this cop who murdered somebody on video in front of everybody didn't go get charged and go to jail and have to bond out, like the cop who killed the Australian woman because he thought she was breaking, and it was in Minneapolis as well? How comes? Folks, we have to get real. And like I placed in the title of the show, one is complicit. You are complicit if you choose to wear colored glasses. Most people are good. Most people, I didn't say cops now, most cops are not good. Stay away as much as you can, especially if you are a person of color. Stay the hell away from the justice system and the police system until we get it fixed. That's what many progressives are trying to do. But then again, many progressives, and I want to make this clear because Daniel Ledo is right about something. Daniel Ledo left a message pointing out that there's a good likelihood that Amy Cooper was a progressive, maybe a liberal. Hey, you may be right. You may be right. But here is the thing. We are all America. And all the ills that we have in America is reflected directly in the police system. The same people that make up America make up the police, but they have power. And not only that, the people who want to be police officers, many of them want that power. They are the people that want to be able to push people around. You know folks like that. You went to high school with them. You went to college with them. These were the bullies. They love it. And yes, Mike Cisak, she was probably a leftist. And who said leftists couldn't be racist? Did you ever hear politics done right say that racism has anything to do with ideology? Did you ever hear it? I don't think I have ever heard. Ever heard. Now, the difference between the left and the right is the left knows that it exists, and they write laws to mitigate it. In other words, like I said, I can't tell you that a cop, that we know cops are bullies. We know that. And to some extent, we want those guys as cops, because if they're really with the bad people, we want somebody that's not scared to go in there and kick some butt. Yeah, so, but what we want is we want enforceable laws to make sure that the people that should be respected and the people that are taken care of, those laws protect them. But in the way we work today, and and Americans are complicit in the way we work. If a cop kills somebody unduly, if a cop hurts somebody unduly, the fact that we are resistant to make them pay is the problem. When a cop shoots a guy running in the back, and the grand jury says no bail. When a cop puts their knees in your and chokes you to death, and there's no bail. This tells you are giving them the opportunity to do so. And look, Pablo Pedraza, no, most racists are not leftist or rightist. Okay? Like I said, racism is a problem with America. It's not an ideological problem within parties at all. Because Daniel Ledo in that regards is right. There are racists that are liberal and there are racists that are conservative. The difference again between liberals and conservatives is that liberals want to institute laws, or they're not an anathema to laws that protect against racism, even as they themselves may be racist. A good example is a person that's going to represent us, Biden. Biden was happy to pass good laws, voting right laws and others, but I don't think Biden is the bastion of non-racism at all. But again, that is not my concern is not your heart. My concern is not what's in your mind. My concern is the influence you can have on others. My concern is when it is institutional, and that is the problem. I don't care what's in your heart. I don't care if you don't like black people. I don't care if you don't like Latinos. I don't care what you don't like. But if the policies that you are going to institute can affect their lives, then that's what I care about. And that is the thing that is what separates a lot of progressives from conservatives. Conservatives rightfully say, I cannot control your heart. That's what you'll hear conservatives say that all the time. But you will hear the person on the left say, but I can write a law to serve that issue. Now, here is the thing, Mr. Pedraza. It doesn't matter what that autopsy comes out and says, right? Because it would have been influenced by that man pinning down that guy on the floor, and as he asked for help, he didn't get it. That is what's important, Senor Pedraza. That is what's important. We have to stop looking at this other than what it is, what you saw on the video. Your lying eyes were not lying to you. But I wanted you to listen to the other part. This part is Parisian again from Eddie Glaude. Very important. Let me go ahead and play this part, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Extremes, people are literally, as it's happening, saying they're killing him. They're killing him. And I don't want to be ignorant enough to say, how does this happen? But I do want to ask you, how do we stop this from happening?
We have to finally be honest with ourselves. We talked about this when this happened with El Paso. We have to understand how profoundly racist our country is and how it shapes the very ways in which communities are policed. Now, that doesn't lead to an indictment of each individual, but it gets us to the systemic nature of inequality. Think about this, Nicole. You have a community that is experiencing trauma and terror simultaneously. Minnesota just hit its peak with COVID-19 yesterday in terms of the number of hospitalizations and the number of dead. And African Americans in Minnesota are disproportionately impacted by coronavirus. And so we're dealing with the devastation of this pandemic, and we're seeing Ahmaud Arbery. We're seeing Breonna Taylor. We're seeing George Floyd. So COVID has changed, has in some ways arrested so much of what the country has been doing about the business as usual, except killing Black folk, except the devaluation of Black folk. And, you know, I'm reminded, it's been echoing in my head over and over again, a character in Toni Morrison's novel, Beloved, Stampede, and I'm a paraphrasing. How much are we supposed to take? How much are we supposed to take? And then when you see the police response to white protesters clamoring to open up the economy, coming into the state capitol in Michigan, spitting and getting in the face of police, having a gun on their side, refusing to have their arms, you know, locked into handcuffs, and they're so patient and restrained. And here we are responding to the fact that this man treated George Floyd like an animal. And then what do we get? Rubber bullets, tear gas, and the like. More than two Americas, Nicole. This is the ugly underside of who we are.
Again, the ending that he just gave, and Mike Cisak and Daniel Ledo, if you don't see that, you have to question yourself. Think about this. That was so eminent. You go ahead and you see it in Michigan. These guys go with their AK-47 into the Capitol. They harass people. They do all these things. They harass the cops. The cops do nothing. The cops do nothing. Here we have a supposedly non-violent arrest. The guy is in handcuffs. There are videos on Crump's website that shows him sitting down peacefully on the ground. Then they pick him up. Remember, he's still in handcuffs to put him in the car. And you know, police officers are taught to do something. And by the way, I have relatives that are police officers. They're taught to constantly say, stop resisting, stop resisting. Because if they have those words on camera, if they have those words on tape, stop resisting, everything they do is through the lens of the person they are arresting is resisting. And we can, and Pablo P. Pedraza, there is, I'm glad you said that. There is video before the 10 minutes. And guess what? The video before the 10 minutes has already been out, and it proved one thing. He was never, ever resisting. The shop owner said he was never, ever resisting. The videos on cameras around the stores says he was never, ever resisting. Do you think that chief of police would have ever fired these guys that quickly? When do you ever see police officers fired so quickly? The only reason he got fired quickly was because they had the incontroverted evidence that proved that was a definite murder. And by the way, I'm calling this particular one murder. Philando Castile was a murder. Michael Brown was a murder. Trayvon Martin was a murder. Ahmaud Arbery was a murder. These were all murders. The only reason people think to question whether it's murder is because these happen to be engulfed in black bodies. And, you know, when we change that in America, when enough of my white brothers and sisters change that in America, when the good ones talk to those who still harbor, I don't care what beliefs they harbor, but what they effect is what's the matter. When you can get to your sister, your right-wing brother, your racist cousin, when you can tell him, hey, that isn't right, then you would have been doing your part to really make a better America. Because what happens now, I have a lot of my friends that would say, you know, Yes, you're right about that, Rose Williams. They also like to say he went for my gun. But the thing about it is, this guy was handcuffed. So again, like I said, this one had to be full stop for them to fire these four guys right away. And you know what's a full stop? The guy was handcuffed on the ground, videos all over with somebody's knee in your neck. It's amazing. It's amazing. So, but anyhow, what I wanted to get across today was to tell all folks. I had a friend that called me up today, and he was almost in tears. And he said to me, Egberto, I'm going to tell you something. I have already lived more than half of my life. If any police officer or any of these vigilantes touches anyone that I love, it is over. Because I am not asking any questions then. It's going to be, as the Old Testament says, an eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. He said that is the only thing, in his opinion, that is going to really make things change. And I'm going to tell you guys a little something here. While in college, I was an activist back in college as well, before I did the corporate thing and had to behave myself for a few years and then get back into activism. But I remember sitting down at school. I was in several organizations, the Afro-American Culture Committee, the South African Liberation Action Committee, the Caribbean Central American Association, which I was a president of. And, you know, we had all these things. We would sit down in the South African Liberation Action Committee and we'll talk about Malcolm X and the differences between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And ironically, the South African Liberation Action Committee was actually mostly white. We were trying to get the university to divest from South Africa, among other things. And the African American Culture Committee was black, and they were concentrated, in Martin Luther King. Everything was Martin Luther King. The other organization was Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and how best to get things. And I remember our conclusion was, you generally hold on longer to what you are willing to shed blood for. And sometimes I wonder outwardly, because the way the hunt occurs from police officers, the way the hunt occurs in a whole lot of things, right? It is that person that thinks they are the ones who afforded you liberty, that believe they can take it away from you. And you see, that was the difference between Martin Luther King, in my opinion, and let's say a Malcolm X. Martin Luther King made others, in my humble opinion, and maybe somebody can correct me from understanding, but he allowed others to give the freedom as opposed to taking the mode that we must take our freedom. And I'm not saying necessarily you have to take your freedom violently, but if people realize that you either give me my freedom, or rather, I will take my freedom, and if you stop my freedom or you try to do something to prohibit my freedom, then I'll take it. I wonder many times, because you have to ask, those who think it was their right to give you your freedom, also some may think it is their right to take it back or take it away. So when my friend called me up today and he said that, I sat back in my chair for a while and I'm like, believe it or not, that statement, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, I can understand where it's coming from. I can genuinely understand where it's coming from. Wow, I don't have much time, but I needed to get Brother Cuomo in here. But we are going to continue talking about this several times over, because we can't just let this stand. And the good thing about it is I have great folk listening here that are part of making things better. Rose Williams, thank you for some of those statements that you make, intelligent statements that you make, my friend. And several others. Trish, thank you so kindly for those very intelligent statements. You get it. You get it. And it is your job, in my humble opinion, to all help us get it. Get it. All right, let me let you listen to this is for all my righties here, because you got to hear what Cuomo had to say, and then we'll be done with the show soon thereafter. Here's what Cuomo had to say.
Do you really think we should starve state governments and cut hospitals? Would that be smart? Do you really want to cut local governments right now? That's cutting police, that's cutting fire. Is now the time to savage essential services? And don't you realize that if you do this, if you cut state and local governments and you cause chaos on the state and local level, how does that help a nation striving to recover economically? The COVID states, the states that bore the brunt of the COVID virus, they're 1/3 of the national GDP. How can you tell 1/3 of the country to go to heck and then think you're going to see an economic rebound? Also, state governments, state economies, local economies, that's what the national economy is made of. Look at history. If you don't learn from the mistakes, you're going to repeat the mistakes. It's that simple. And we have seen in the past what has happened when state and local governments were savaged and how it hurt the national recovery. Wall Street Journal, not exactly a liberal publication, makes the point that on the economy, cuts to employment and spending likely to weigh on growth for years. The Federal Reserve Chairman, Powell, very smart man, respected on both sides of the aisle, said we have evidence the global financial crisis and the years afterwards where state and local government layoffs and lack of hiring weighed on economic growth. You have people saying, well, we don't want to pass a bill that helps Democratic states. It would be a blue state bailout, is what some have said. Senator McConnell, stopping blue state bailouts. Senator Scott, we're supposed to go bail them out? That's not right. On Fox TV, Laffer, you want us to give our money to Cuomo in New York? Hello, not this week. Not only is it ugly, it is false. But if you want to pose the question, what states give money and what states take money, right? That's a question that Senator McConnell, Senator Scott, and Mr. Laffer don't really want to ask. Because the truth is totally the opposite of what they're saying. You look at the states that give more money to the federal government than they get back. You know the top, what they call donor state? You know what one state pays in more to the pot than they take out of the federal pot than any other state in the United States? It's the state of New York. New York pays more every year, $29 billion more than they take back. You know the second state? New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, California. Every year they contribute more to the federal pot. You know who takes out more than they put in from that pot? You know whose hand goes in deeper? Out more than they put in? Virginia, Maryland, Kentucky, Alabama, Florida. Those are the facts. Those are the numbers. The great irony is the conservatives want to argue against redistribution of wealth. Why should you take money from the rich and give it to the poor? That's exactly what you are doing. That is exactly what you have done every year. So it's only redistribution unless you wind up getting more money. Then it's fine. Then it's not redistribution. Take from the rich, give to the poor. That's redistribution. Yes, unless you're the poor. Senator McConnell, Senator Scott, because you were the ones who have your hand out. You are the ones who are taking more than others. Redistribution, you're against it. Except when the richer states give you more money every year. And then the great hypocrisy. They actually made the redistribution worse. When they passed 3 years ago a provision ending what's called state and local tax deductibility, that didn't level the playing field. What they did was they took the states that were already paying more money into the federal government, the quote unquote richer states, and they increased the money they were taking from the richer states. They took another $23 billion from California, another $14 billion from New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Illinois, Connecticut. The hypocrisy is so insulting because when you start to talk about numbers, there are still facts.
When you start to talk about numbers, there are still facts, and those are the facts. So, folks, we're at the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed the show. But before you go, I want to remind you that this is a show that needs your support. So please go to patreon.com/politics done right. That is patreon.com/politics done right. I'm throwing that into the chat room in all platforms, both Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. So go to patreon.com/politics done right. patreon.com/politics done right. Please support progressive media. That's the only way we're going to get the truth out there, by supporting programs in the independent media like this. As well, you can go to paypal.me/politics done right. I'm also putting that in the feed. paypal.me/politics done right. And don't forget, shop at our store. Our store is at store.politicsdoneright.com. And guess what? You can get our cup with Politics Done Right on it. You can also get our book. You learn everything you need to learn about the economy. As I see it, class warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. It's not only about economics, it's quite a bit about how the entire society works and how we can change society to make it better and that sort of a thing. And of course, you guys know I've always had my issues with health and weight and that kind of stuff. Lose weight and be fit now. So all those things I have at store.politicsdoneright.com, store.politicsdoneright.com. We do need your support. If you're on YouTube, you can also give us what's known as a super chat, which means, hey, I like your show today. Click, let me go ahead and give you a little something for the show. Let's make sure and keep progressive media on. You know, it's funny because we fund all these other entities. We fund ABC, CBS, NBC, all these guys with the commercials we watch, etc., etc., etc. We go ahead and we pay these humongous amount of bills for cable to allow these folks to lie to us. What I'm saying, why not do a little something to ensure we can have independent media going forward that's not going to just tell us a little bit of the truth, but that we're going to be out there telling the way it is, and not only telling the way it is, but being a part of the solution, being active within the solution. That's what we are. This is independent media. This is activism. This is activist journalism. You name it. That is the only way we are going to get the country changed. My name is Egberto, and I did it again. I forgot to put the scroll on. Here it is. My name is Egberto